Hello and good day to everybody. Thank you for joining us for this month's edition of the PPI Podcast, a special production of the Philippine Press Institute, the country's association of newspapers, in cooperation with the Hans Seidel Foundation. For this April episode, I am your host, Ed Lingao. Today, we discuss an issue that has been hogging the headlines for several weeks now. Unfortunately, it is also an issue which is also ridden with so much confusion and complexity for several reasons. To begin with, it's about taxes. And for many of us, there is nothing more confounding, confusing, and perhaps discombobulating as taxes. Secondly, because it is about taxes of the Marcos family, and there's nothing more politically complex and emotionally charged than anything involving the Marcoses. And thirdly, because it is an issue that spans 6 administrations, at least, possibly going to the 7th. So today we hope to have more clarity on the issue of the Marcos estate tax liabilities. And for that, we have several guests today. I will show them to you in a few minutes. Okay, for that, we have as guest former BIR Commissioner Kim Henares and former Supreme Court Associate Justice Antonio Carpio. Please take note, we took great pains to invite somebody from the current BIR, pero hindi po tayo napagbigyan. We made calls to several offices of several commissioners, the Collection Service, and the Information Office of the BIR. So, well, apparently it's a privacy issue as well. We also tried but failed to get a representative from the Marcos camp. As you know, there have been few statements from the Marcos camp on the issue. Last March 17, Bongbong Marcos said there's a lot of fake news going around about the estate tax issue. And he said that primarily the issue is still pending before the courts. And so leave it to the lawyers to discuss. As well, the Marcos camp has said that the issue is being used as a campaign issue. Anyway, so let's jump straight in. I have taken the liberty of preparing a few slides to visually show for the benefit of our audience and our listeners. Well, at least, especially for the watchers, I suppose. It's a slideshow. A timeline for those who need a backgrounder, considering that this is about taxes. And this is about taxes going back 3 decades. Now, the estate tax, let me just show you. Here we go. A slide. The estate tax, of course, is an inheritance tax, a tax you pay for the privilege of inheriting something. It's pay before you enjoy. How much you pay will depend on when the tax is imposed. So a quick run through. I hope you can see it now. The Marcos estate tax liabilities. A quick timeline. September 28, 1989, the former president dies in exile in Hawaii. June 27, 1990, the BIR creates a special tax audit team to investigate, examine tax liabilities and obligations of the Marcos family. Findings as of July 26, 1991, deficiency estate tax assessment of 23.293 billion pesos, that's of 1991. As well, deficiency income tax assessments for the Marcos spouse and Bongbong Marcos. I won't go into that anymore because that's a different thing altogether, pero may ganun pa. Okay, now the assessments were served according to the BIR on these dates: August 26, 1991, September 12, 1991, both for Bongbong Marcos's address and Imelda Marcos's address. October 20, 1992, I think this was in the House of Representatives, and October 8, 1992, to then lawyer of the Marcoses, the late Dean Antonio Coronel. The assessments were not protested administratively. In other words, apparently the assessments were not contested by any member of the Marcos family. So these are the dates involved. Now moving forward. So in February and May, the BIR then started levying Marcos assets, Marcos land in 1993, 22 parcels first in February, 8 parcels in May 1993. Public auction for 11 parcels of land was held in July 1993, but there was a failure of bidding, so the land was forfeited in favor of the government. That's as of 1993. Now, as a result of that, and perhaps because of that, the Marcoses went to court, first with the Court of Appeals, June 25, 1993, asking the CA, questioning the BIR assessment, first of all, arguing that there's a pending probate proceeding and saying that there is no exact determination of the estate value because of pending ownership cases on the estate. And as well, the argument that there was insufficient notification done by the BIR for the Marcos family. But we have GR 120880 from the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court by June 5, 1997. This is a third division, I understand. The ruling was that deficiency tax assessments were already final, unappealable, and enforceable. That's as of 1997. Also, the levy on real properties is a remedy allowed by the NIRC, and that there was sufficient and constructive notice of assessments. In other words, as far as the Supreme Court was concerned, it was for enforcement already. 1997. This was appealed in, I think, in the succeeding years until 1999. There was already an entry of judgment, making it really final and executory. So that was 25 years ago. And the question, of course, now for all of us is what has happened since then, whether your peg is 1991, 1997, or 1999. And so we have several issues on the table. Among them, just among them, after 25 years, why is the money still uncollected? Also, you have some people saying from various sources, from various camps. For example, Bobby Tiglao is insisting that nakolekta na raw. That the amount was satisfied already. So, is it still uncollected? If not, why? Who is liable? Is it government or is it the Marcoses? What is still to be collected? When, for example, there were parcels of land involved. So, meron namang deduction doon. And moving forward, how do we collect? I think that's the most important part of all. How do we collect the money if there's still some collectible involved? So there, let me take down. There we go. Okay. Okay, we're back. Okay. Well, thank you, Justice Carpio, Commissioner Henares, for joining us this afternoon. Again, like I warned you a while ago, you may have some repeat questions from previous interviews, but because of the issues that I brought up, I think you'd understand that we would have to ask some of them again for better clarity. If you don't mind, let me start off with Commissioner Kim. Kasi dati po kayong BIR, in the end po kasi collection eh.
Okay.
The question of course is well, 25 years going from 1997, bakit po hindi pa nakokolekta? That's a question asked by a lot of people from all sides of the court, especially from the Marcos camp. They're saying na this is politically motivated and politically charged. Bakit ngayon lamang, if at all ngayon lang, kung hindi ngayon lang, kung dati nang nangongolekta, bakit po hindi pa nakokolekta?
Okay. Mula noon in a session, tuloy-tuloy ho ang attempt ng BIR sa pagkokolekta. Ano yung attempt ng BIR sa pagkokolekta? First, inipensa niya yung kaso na binigay na the Marcoses brought against the BIR. Secondly, BIR continued to look for property to be attached. What is different in the case of the Marcos estate is that we have two competing agency that's going after the Marcos property. Mm-hmm. One is PGGG, who's saying that whatever property they find, these are all ill-gotten wealth, and therefore everything should be forfeited in favor of the government.
Everything,
so, yeah. So BIR have to look for property that is not in the PCGG realm. And then the other thing, the difficulty is if you will base, I don't know whether this is just hearsay or not, but a lot of their property are abroad. So if you're the BIR, you cannot go abroad and collect those money or attach those property. You have to follow the process of the home of the country where the properties are. So, but that's a very difficult process. That's why during my term, that's why I've been mentioning this, that we recommended that we ratify the Mutual Assistance Convention with the OECD so that we can go out and collect assets for all this tactic delinquency from wherever it is located. So that's still pending with Senate, I think. So, yun yung dahilan. Up to now, tuloy-tuloy pa rin ho yung effort na bumalik.
Yes, sir. Actually, ma'am, sorry, layman's question. I mean, non-tax expert. I'm terrible talaga with taxes. But anyway, very layman's question. Bakit hindi makuha if you're looking for properties to issue a warrant of distraint on or warrant of distraint and levy on to satisfy yung ruling. Don't the Marcoses have more than sufficient properties at present? For example, in 2018, Imelda Marcos's SALN was at 928 million. In 2012, I think Bongbong Marcos's SALN was at 300 or 400 million. So medyo there's a lot of money there and assets declared. This is declared money.
But you have to. We're taxing the estate of Ferdinand Marcos. We're not taxing the estate or the property
of the heirs,
Elda or Bongbong Marcos. If we're going to say that those came from the estate of Marcos, then the IR will have to trace back all that ownership. No? So most probably you will have to first file a case of how were you able to acquire all those property? Either you have income that you did not pay taxes for, or it's an inheritance that you got when you have not paid the estate tax. So that's a longer. You cannot just presume that you have this asset na it came from the estate, no? So yun dapat mas Kaya nga that's why we have been always espousing that we should leave the bank secrecy law. Because without that, we cannot trace. Kasi pagdating sa bangko, wala ka nang magagawa kasi hindi ka bigyan ng ebidensya ng bangko. No? So, paano mo matritrace kung saan nanggagaling yung pera?
Mm-hmm. Ma'am, one more before I jump to Justice Carpio. Is it safe to assume? Na because the Marcoses have not yet paid any estate taxes since Marcos Sr. died in 1989? Is it safe to assume that legally they could not have inherited anything yet from the father? Yes, so in other words, whatever assets they have now should not or could not legally have come from inheritance.
Yes. Legally, it should not have come from inheritance because estate tax has not been paid for.
Mm-hmm. Okay, but that also raises some interesting questions as well. Justice Carpio, let me ask you about that. Kasi in 2003, GR 152154 on the Marcos Swiss bank accounts, di ba? It was pretty clear there. The enforcement of the law as far as yung what is provable to have been legitimate income versus what can be forfeited because hindi na-establish yung legitimacy ng income. That's why the Swiss bank accounts were taken in. But for example, what we were talking about a while ago, kung hindi namana, kasi hindi pa pwedeng manahin, kung hindi namana, how does one make the family account for where the money came from, and consequently, is it therefore something that can be contested in court to be of questionable origin?
Well, that is correct. The heirs cannot acquire anything from the estate unless the taxes are first paid, because the number one creditor is the government. You must first pay taxes. After you pay the estate tax, then the heirs can get the inheritance. So in the case of the Marcoses, they have properties in their name now, but they have not paid the estate tax. So they will have to prove, I think the government can file a case. First, the government must investigate how did they acquire these properties. Kanino galing yan? No? If it came from income, like si Bongbong, wala naman siyang trabaho, where did he get the money? So if he cannot account for the source of the money, the presumption will be it came from the estate. Pag walang source, I can't point to a legitimate source. No? He was never employed for a long time, and he had no businesses, but he has so much properties which he declared under his SAL-N. Well, of course, those properties could belong also to the wife. So that's why I say the BIR should conduct an investigation, and if they cannot trace any source of that of those properties, then they can file a case in court claiming that is from the estate because there's no other source. That would be the position that I will take.
Oh, okay. Sir, pero yung kasi moving forward, how come that was never done by anybody? I mean, it's been 25 years. And yun nga, it's been more than a decade since GR 152-154 na successfully implement yung rule na if you can't prove it, therefore it must be ill-gotten eh. To move it forward, what has to be done or what should be done by whom? Kumbaga, nakanino dapat ang bola ngayon?
Well, if you look at the Marcoses have returned to power, and they've become senators, congressmen, governors. So, of course, lowly government officials like BIR examiners would not want to tangle with them. No. So my point is, if Bongbong Marcos becomes president, the more we cannot collect this amount anymore.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. We understand, sir. Pero going back to the question na who should now file or who should now go to court to raise questions?
Should collect because that's their duty. Since they cannot find anything in the name of Ferdinand Marcos, they have sent notices of garnishment practically to all banks. Well, they can go to the next step. What I'm saying, look at the properties in the name of the heirs of Marcos. Did they acquire anything, and can they account for the purchase of these properties?
Yes, sir. So BIR is one. What about PCGG, sir? Is there still any value in relying on the PCGG for this?
The PCGG is after ill-gotten wealth. I understand their arrangement. If it is ill-gotten, it goes to the government. It doesn't. But why those properties under litigation as ill-gotten are not being touched by the BIR? Because if they are declared to be legitimately owned by the Marcoses, that's when the BIR will get them. So we will maximize our collection. We will collect all the ill-gotten wealth, plus all those wealth that cannot be proved as ill-gotten can be taken over by tax through the tax payment. I think that's the rationale behind that agreement, no? To maximize the collection.
Commissioner Kim, I'll go back to something that I think, if I recall correctly, something you said in our previous interview with Wagpo. Parang as far as the BIR is concerned, the collection agencies are concerned, it doesn't matter if it's ill-gotten or not. If it's it shouldn't matter to the collection agency whether it's ill-gotten or not. Tama ho ba? And secondly, in coming up with the assessment, I know this was before your time, kasi 1991 to, but in coming up with that assessment in 1991, would you know if the BIR included the properties which were at that time sequestered already by government? In other words, hawak-hawak na ng gobyerno at meron ng kaso na nakatayap sa kanya? Kasi yun po ang ginagamit na argumento ngayon ng at least in part ng Marcos camp that these properties are tied up in litigation, and that number two, it's impossible daw to come up with a valuation because the properties are still pending litigation.
Like I said, when BIR have an agreement with PCGG that if it is ill-gotten, it's under PCGG, and if it's legitimate, then that's the one where that BIR will be running after. So I haven't seen the assessment, but that's the modus vivendi between the two agencies.
Yeah.
And the second point is that they were given the right to question the assessment, and they never did.
Yes, ma'am. Oh, that's clear.
Level, no? So, and then they have the opportunity to go up to the Court of Appeal and then to the Supreme Court, but they never questioned the inventory. They may have questioned the valuation, but they never questioned the inventory in the estate tax return. So how can they now say that there are other things included in that? No, I think if they need to blame anyone, they should blame their lawyers, no, for not questioning it. At this point in time, it's smooth and academic. That's already the decision of the Supreme Court that basically said, this is your estate tax liability. So it went to 1989 siya namatay, 1999 naging final, 10 years of litigation. So kung may question yun, dapat na-raise na ho yan. And I'm sure, pagdating sa Supreme Court, yung mga ganun na question, pwede pa rin i-raise. Kasi kung sinama na ng BIR yung mga na-sequester dun sa estate tax, di ba parang unconscionable naman yung assessment. So, pwede pa rin nilang tingnan yan. Pero if you read the case, wala naman silang dinidispute tungkol sa inventory ng nandoon sa estate. So, due process has taken its course and they were participating and they did not question. So how can they question it now?
Yes, actually, I get what you mean. In other words, sarado na yung tindahan kasi the process has been completed. Tama ho ba na? Tama naman, no? Yung tindahan ay nasara na nung nag-lapse yung 30 days.
Noong 1999, yung di ba, nag-entry of judgment, March 1999. It already, all argument, whether what was included, not included, is it questionable, not questionable, has been settled on March 9, 1999.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. I understand you there. But also po, let me take it from this point of view. As a matter of procedure, sumablay po sila. Hindi sila naghabol, hindi sila nag-file ng protest. So nagsara na yung tindahan. My question po is but in the end, as far as the content of the assessment is concerned, is it possible na nagka double or nagka I don't know if you'd say it's an error or nagkaroon ng double counting. In other words, na decision na later ng court. So although procedurally dapat kasama pa, pero realistically hindi na. I don't know if you get what I mean po eh. Pero alam mo,
the BIR would include those in PCGG. Kasi nga, you already have an agreement with PCGG, di ba? Na hindi ko papakialaman yung mga asset na sinasabi yung ill-gotten. Kasi sinequester nyo nga eh. So by the time in-assess ng BIR, sequestered na yung property. So wala na yan. Most probably, pag pumunta ka sa titulo ng maya, nakalagay na yan, Republic of the Philippines. Hindi na yun Ferdinand Marcos Sr. So, okay. Yun.
Okay. Justice Carpio, I read with interest your recent column in Rappler, and very important points. But let me also ask you about this kasi si Bobby Tiglao also had a column just a few days ago. So and medyo head to head yung points po ninyong dalawa. Ang point ni Bobby Tiglao is mukhang, at least from his point of view, baka na-satisfy na yung assessment ng BIR noong 1991 with the field auction and forfeiture of the 11 properties doon sa Leyte, because that was I think that was even the spark that made Bongbong Marcos question the decision with the Court of Appeals eh. Doon nagsimula ang lahat eh. Kung hindi na confiscate yun, baka hindi siya gumalaw. But anyway, si Tiglao was making the argument na that was meant to satisfy already the assessment, and therefore baka wala nang need for any more satisfying of the assessment now.
Well,
yes, sir.
The Marcos has never raised that defense. That bayad na kasi na-auction na yung 11 properties. They never raised that anywhere. CA, in the Supreme Court, in their motion for reconsideration twice, they never claimed payment because there was no payment. If you look at those 11 properties, their zonal values would be insignificant. The tax was 23.3 billion.
Yeah, yes.
11 properties. And there's a provision in the revenue code, in the tax code, section 2017, that if the proceeds of the auction sale are not sufficient, the BIR will again levy upon or distrain personal properties, levy real property until the debt is fully satisfied. So it can't be satisfied by just 11 properties. Ano ba na yung 11 properties na yun? Hindi aabot ng 23.3 billion yun. That
probinsya pa.
Has been bandied about by the Marcoses, but it's very clear in black and white. This tax code says if the proceeds of the auction sale are not sufficient to pay the debt, the tax debt, then the BR will start to distrain personal property or levy upon real property or garnish bank accounts again until it's fully paid. Of course, that's not ganyan talaga. Pag may utang ka sa bangko, yung narimata na property kulang, habulin pa rin kayo sa deficiency. That's how the world is put together. For you to claim na tapos na yan, may 11 na, walang ganyan. Never. Look for any country in the world that allows that. Never.
Can I?
Yes, ma'am. Good.
Alam nyo, kung yung theory ni Bobby Tiglao ang susundin natin, no? So kung ako yung taxpayer, no? Sasabihin ko, okay, i-assess mo na lang ako. Ipapa-final and executory ko yan. Sasabihin ko sa kanya, kunya 100 million yung assessment mo sa akin. O sasabihin ko sa iyo, final and executory na yan. Meron ako dyan, isang property, 500 square meter. 1 million worth yan. Kunin mo na. Kasi ma-erase na yung 100 million sa pagkuha mo ng 1 million. Eh, di
parang
ba,
tawad na lang.
Anong mangyayari sa Pilipinas? Lahat ng tao, gano'n na lang ang gagawin. Di ba? So, common sense does not also work.
In other words po, tell me if I'm getting this right. In other words, what you're saying is that however way you look at it, the 11 properties would never amount to 23.3 billion. It can never amount to that much.
Yeah, in the first place, you can go through the zonal value. Ang madali naman i-check yan eh. Punta kayo sa zonal value ng Leyte. Eh kung ganyan yan, di yung property niya yan worth 10 billion per square meter. 10 million per square meter para masatisfy yung meron pag ganung property sa Leyte.
And the lawyers Marcoses never claimed that. I mean, only the non-lawyers claimed that. But the lawyers of the Marcoses never claimed payment because of those 11 auction of properties.
But at any rate, I understand what you're saying po. Talagang bitin yun. Yung Leyte properties, nasa Leyte pa naman, nasa probinsya. Pero po, would that also mean with the forfeiture of those 11 properties, yung 23.23 billion na deficiency assessment, nabawasan na? Kasi that's how it works, di ba?
Kung hindi siya na bit out, siguro, so that there's no undue enrichment of the Philippine government, what we will put as a value is the zonal value of those property, and whatever the zonal value, that's the one will be used to minus from whatever liability they have.
Justice, you were saying?
Yeah, it's easy to compute the zonal value of that, but the Marcoses don't even want to compute because I'm sure it will not even amount to 10 million pesos.
Okay, so malayo pa sa 23.3 billion. Okay, sige po, moving forward po. Okay, of course, the question on all people's mind is kung hindi pa collected hanggang ngayon, because for various reasons, perhaps hindi pa mahanap yung ibang properties ng estate na pwedeng na pwedeng mag-levy or distraint ang BIR. What happens next? Naklino ho yung bola. Is it Is it a problem with the BIR or a problem with the Marcos family? I know po, some of you have answered this before, but let me also approach this from the point of view of an ordinary viewer na hindi po hindi po very tax savvy. Let me put it this way po. Ang estate tax or inheritance tax po ba, are you required to pay it regardless, or do you only have to pay it as an option if you want to claim the inheritance? The first one being mandatory, and if you don't pay it, patay ka sa korte. The second one being it's an option if you are going to pursue the inheritance.
No, it's mandatory whether you want it or not. You have to pay the estate tax.
So even if you don't, even don't pursue,
it does not ask you the heirs whether you like it or not. Now, if you don't like to inherit, what you can do, you can donate everything to a charity that's allowed under the law. Therefore, you will no longer have any estate tax to pay. Because a donation may deduction yan na pwedeng allowed, i-donate mo sa gobyerno, no? So, deductible yan. So, kung lahat ayaw mo, donate mo sa gobyerno, di wala kang babayaran na estate tax.
Justice?
Well, it's mandatory because the tax code says you should pay your estate tax, no? And it's even a legal obligation on the part of the executors or administrators. They have to pay the tax. And if the heirs don't want to, then the government will just seize the property, distrain it, or levy upon it, and then sell it at auction sale to satisfy the estate tax.
Okay, so there's consensus there na talagang it's mandatory. It's not an option lamang. Na hindi pwedeng sabihin na hindi ko naman kukunin yan dahil marami akong pera eh. Kasi po if you look at how it is now with their salins, marami po silang assets. So yeah, you might also have that argument na why will I bother with the 23.3 billion when when I have my assets. So ganun po, it's clear po na
Mandatory.
Madami silang pera pero can they prove where they got it? I mean, can they prove that they did not get it from the estate? Yun ang kailangan tignan ng gobyerno.
Okay. We have some questions from the audience. Okay. Una po, ilan ang known properties ni Marcos Sr. abroad? Well, in part na nasagot ni Ma'am Kim, pero let me push to with it na rin. Ilan ang known properties ni Marcos Sr. abroad at ilan ang andito sa Pilipinas na hindi, ito pala yung clincher, na hindi sakop ng PCGG. In other words, hindi po siya under litigation or under sequestration.
Tingin ko, yung mga na-levy na ng BIR, no? Yung 30 property, yan yung hindi sakop ng PCGG. No?
Those 30 property.
Ngayon, naghahanap pa rin ng BIR. Di ko alam kung may mahanap pa sila. No? Tapos abroad, hindi nga natin ngayon malaman eksakto kasi walang authority ang BIR na lumabas outside the boundary of the Philippines. No? Pero marami kang naririnig na dollar deposit kung saan-saan, di ba? May mga New York, dati, mga New York properties, mga ganun. So, pero ngayon, hindi mo alam kung nandyan pa ba yan or nasaan na yung property, mga pera. No? Kasi yun na nga, hindi yung pwedeng lumabas sa boundary ng Pilipinas ang BIR sa pag-i-enforce ng assessment nila.
Yeah. And I think to the point of Justice Carpio kanina, Justice, tell me if I'm getting this correctly, we have to be able to prove that that property or asset belongs to the estate so that it's part of the estate or inheritance. Tama ho ba?
I would take the position that the government, the BIR, will file a case and claim their investigation and claim that the property that are now registered in the name of the Marcos heirs do not appear to have been earned by them through their work. So the only possible source would be the estate. They have to go into that exercise. Because ang nangyayari, if you don't go into that exercise, status quo. They have the properties in their name, but nobody wants to question how they got those properties.
Yeah. Yun po, I asked that question kanina kasi nga marvelous yung yung assets ni Imelda. In 2018, she was the third richest congresswoman with 928 million pesos in assets in 2018. So I was raising that question kasi parang saan galing yun?
Because sa kanya, for Imelda, of course, he cannot claim that it came from her spouse. Wala na yung spouse niya. Unlike the heirs can claim it came from their spouse. Pero sa kanya, wala. It has to come from the estate. Wala naman siyang trabaho. Wala naman siya, he cannot claim that donation from anyone. So, the BIR can file a case, and if she cannot show how she acquired these assets, the presumption will be it came from the estate.
Pero Justice and Commissioner, I'm wondering lang how likely is it that the BIR would file such a case?
Will never that Bongbong becomes president.
Okay, Justice, you've made that point several times po. But even then, I suppose it's also worth asking, how come we've never been able to, kasi also, Justice, you've also mentioned in your column, I think in previous columns, na may liability po criminally for failing to pay the estate taxes for so long. But Ma'am Kim, also please weigh in here. How come we've never pursued that liability, that criminal liability? Hindi lang po yung pag-claim o pag-singil dun sa estate taxes, but also to pursue yung criminal case to force the hand of the respondents.
You know, the provision of the tax code, section 254, 255, requires willful non-payment. So, hindi lang yung, kung wala yung willful non-payment, okay, it's easy to file a case. But because of the adjective willful non-payment, willful non-filing, you have to prove willfulness. That's the most difficult component in a criminal case to prove. How do you prove willfulness, right? So, yun yung parating problema ng BIR. No? Like in my case, I filed 600 plus tax evasion case. I don't think only a very few of them prosper. No? Kasi yun nga, yung difficulty nun, willfulness. Pagdating very subjective po yung pag-gauge, ano ba yung willful, ano ba yung, so pag dumarating na ho sa prosecution, sa DOJ, madalas yun yung problema, no? And then talking to somebody in the Department of Justice who does not understand taxation, that's another problem. Then, yun. So, yun yung mahirap dun sa pagpa-file ng criminal case. How do you prove willfulness? No? Maybe in this instance, you can prove it already because it's already 25 years, so they still haven't paid. But of course, they can raise the defense that they can raise whatever defense they want. No? And then it's now up to the appreciation of the prosecutor, justices, whether they're able to raise the proper defense or we're able to prove beyond reasonable doubt that they have willfully violated. So yun yung problema ng BIR every time nagpo-file ng criminal case.
Justice, let me push the point you made a while ago, if you don't mind. I find that interesting. The possibility of investigating, examining the current assets of the heirs to see if they were acquired through inheritance, even if not legally. Do we really have to wait for government agencies to do that, or is there any possibility for a taxpayer or a civil society group or anyone anyone to pursue that case if the agencies don't act?
Well, the case will have to be filed because it will be a criminal case. No? It will be filed by the DOJ, complaint of the BIR. If it's a civil case, still the BIR that will file it. I mean, citizens have no standing to file a case to collect taxes.
Okay.
It will have to be the BIR that will do it.
So wala po tayong magagawa.
Well, you can complain. I mean, you can, like what everybody is doing now. The best way is, okay, you're running for president, show us that you paid your taxes. Ganyan nangyayari ngayon because they never bothered before. They just ignored everybody. But now, they will have to account because you have to show that you have integrity, that you comply with the law, that you can be entrusted with the taxpayers' money. That's why it's being raised now.
Well, sir, I get your point. I suppose everybody gets your point that's why it's being raised now. But at the same time, it appears to be I don't know. I suppose to each his own opinion. Pero it appears it doesn't seem to be striking a chord with people who are responding to the surveys. I mean, if you look at the surveys, the survey numbers, parang hindi siya tumatalab. Di ba? You would like to think, I think we would all like to think na ang taxes masakit yan eh. So, gut issue yan eh.
Well, that means people like you have not done their job enough.
Okay, touche. Okay. Well, I will agree with you there.
Yeah, I think the reason why hindi yan tumatalab is deep in the heart of a lot of people, they don't want to pay taxes.
Oh, there you go. That's another one. That's
why I don't think I think that's the whole reason why hindi nagkakaroon ng effect sa survey ni DPN. Kasi deep in people's heart, they cannot understand why they pay taxes.
may hugot kayo, ma'am, no?
Kasi tingin ko, yun yung pinakamahirap na trabaho sa gobyerno. Yung mga
I'd imagine.
So, kasi lahat ng tao talagang ayaw magbayad ng buwis. Talagang kailangan mong you should really have a steel will to make people pay.
Parang bumubunot ng ngipin. But let me reframe the question. Po. Bakit, from your perspectives po, bakit importante na public issue itong estate tax? How would you, both of you po, how would you want to frame it to the general public? How should the general public look at this issue? Kayo pong dalawa. Whoever wants to go first.
Yeah. Well, courts always say that taxes are the lifeblood of the nation. In other words, pag kotse ang bansa natin, taxes are the fuel. Pag wala kang gasolina, hindi tatakbo. If you don't collect taxes, you don't have money to pay your teachers. You don't have money to pay your police, your military, your government employees. You cannot maintain roads and bridges. In other words, government will not run. Walang gasolina eh. So that's why it's very important. It's the lifeblood. And if you are the president, you must set an example that you can be entrusted, because the president is actually the custodian of the funds of government kasi he has control of the government. So you can, if you want to be president, you must show to people that you can be entrusted with the funds, taxpayers' money. Eh pag ikaw mismo hindi ka nagbayad, you are the biggest tax evader in the country, then you cannot be entrusted with the taxpayers' money. Now, that's it's a matter of explaining to the people that napaka-importante yun. Kasi pag walang taxes, walang bansa. I mean, who will maintain the roads? Who will pay the teachers? Walang ayuda. Walang hospitals. Nothing at all. That's how important taxes are. Thank you.
I think the estate tax issue, and compliance with tax obligation is important, in the sense na, like I said, yan ang pinakamahirap implementin, kung yung leader ng bansa hindi nagbabayad ng buwis, paano niya sasabihin sa mamamayan, magbayad kayo ng buwis? Yan yung malaking problema. And secondly, kung ikaw ang leader ng bansa, di ba dapat rule of law, sundin mo kung ano nakalagay sa batas mo. Kung ito hindi mo masunod, paano pa yung ibang batas? Can you comply with it? And the other thing is, we're already, if you look at today's budget, it's already funded 25% by debt.
Yeah.
So that means our collection is not doing well. Even if they say they're collecting based on target, because their target are so low, so that they can reach their goal. But if you look at our budget, when in 2016, around 8 to 10% lang yan ang debt. Ngayon, 25% na ng total budget is debt. So pag hindi ka nagbabayad ng buwis, di ba, ilan yung 1.2 million government employees, hindi mo naman pwedeng hintuin yung sweldo niyan. Lahat ng government offices may kuryente, tubig, rent. Hindi mo rin naman yan pwedeng hintuin. Ngayon, yung conditional cash transfer para sa mahihirap, di ba, 4.5 million na yung mahirap. Hindi mo naman pwede rin yan hintuin. So ano ibig sabihin yan? Hindi ka makakakolekta, hihiram ka ng mas maraming pera. Pag ganyan ng ganyan, magiging Sri Lanka ho tayo. There will come a point na wala na magpapahiram sa iyo ng pera, di ba? So, ano nangyayari sa Sri Lanka ngayon? Di ba? Hindi kayo pwedeng bumili ng gasolina. Kasi walang foreign exchange para pambili ng gasolina. No? So, yun problema. Sa totoo lang, kung mangyayari yan, ang mahihirapan yung mahihirap sa society natin. Kasi yung may nakausap nga ako, no? Yung mga mayayaman naman raw, they can still continue eating 3 times a day.
Mm-hmm.
But the problem is, diba, when you're in government, your real concern is the poor and the less fortunate member of the country. Actually, dapat ang gobyerno, hindi na pinapakian naman, may inaalala yung mga may kaya. Kasi kaya na nila eh. Ang gobyerno, talagang ang concern nila, yung mga walang kaya sa buhay. Ano naman magagawa nila kung walang pera ang gobyerno? So, importante itong issue na aside from yung taxes sa lifeblood, but more than that, we have to have rule of law, discipline in our country. Kung wala, we were just a banana republic. Diba?
Well, bananas can be taxed.
The monkeys eat the bananas.
Well, ako po, one more question. In December of last year, sinabi ng BIR, at least in response to a query from Ernest Ramel of Action Democratico, that they again reissued a deficiency tax assessment or demand letter to the Marcos estate to pay up. Ang problema lang doon kasi hindi po hindi sinabi kung magkano yung sinisingil na at this time or at least as of December 2, 2021. Let me back up a bit po. Ma'am Kim, would you know during your time, I suppose kasi you send demand letters regularly. Would you know how much it was during your time between 2010 and 2016?
There's a process in the BIR. It is taken care of by collection service. It does not even get elevated anymore to the commissioner. So
it's ministerial na. It's more ministerial na.
Yeah, it's automatic. It goes out, the assessment with all the And then the other thing is because we have the confidentiality provision in the tax code, that we should not divulge information because there are penal provision for divulging information.
Kaya wala akong makuha from BIR.
So yan yung problema. siguro masking gustong gawin ng PIR, wala naman sila magagawa
Okay, I
kasi
understand.
provision ng batas nandyan. Yun.
Okay, I understand. Actually, after I read the BIR's response to an FOI request by Rappler, then I understood that it was a privacy issue pala. Among other things that they cannot reveal those details. Pero Justice, your computation is around 203 billion. At least that's the latest computation that you made. I think you also made that in your column.
Actually, conservative. Kasi actually there are two delinquencies at 20% per annum. That's the delinquency rate and deficiency rate. And they have not paid it. Actually, the assessment became final in 1991, about the November or December. That's 29 years. So 29 years times 40%, that's more than 10 times already.
So you're saying it's a conservative estimate on your part. It will
Yes.
probably be bigger.
Yeah, I was very conservative. But based on that alone, that there are two deficiencies, there are two kinds of interests at 20% each, deficiency and delinquency. And it's about the, let's say, average of 25 years. So that's about 10 times already.
Sir, can I make a correction? Okay. Okay, I'll give you how it is computed. Then you can compute it on your own. Okay. So,
Ma'am, kayo na mag-compute from your end. Mathematics pa yan.
so it's like this. Okay. From 23.3 billion, you compute a 25% surcharge because the one who completed the return is the BIR commissioner. May penalty yan na 25% surcharge. So that's around 5.825 billion. So that's 29.125. No?
Okay, 29.125.
Then you have 6 months to pay from September 28. So October, November, December. So by March 28, they should have paid. So since they did not pay, you have now to compute so 29 billion plus 5,825, then you compute 14% in interest. Up to 14%.
Parang may-quiz kami.
March 28, 1989 hanggang March 9, 1999. No? Pagkatapos na yun, total na yan, mag-compute ka ulit ng 20% interest from March 9, 1999 up to December 31, 2017. Kasi after, from January 1, 2018 up to now, the interest is only 12%. So yun ho yung computation. So the last time I computed it when it's March, it's around 205 billion. Assuming there's no deduction for the 11 properties. Yun.
Okay. So nasa 200 billion din.
105 na last March. Parang taxi yan eh. So 205. Metro yan. Hanggang di ka nagbabayad, dagdag yan ng dagdag ng interest. So yun ho, yung computation yun. So more or less tama yung computation ni Justice Carpio na 203.
Okay. Ma'am, sir, is it really realistically possible to pay this by any family?
Alam niyo,
my last question na yan.
alam niyo, kung talagang gusto nila hong bayaran niya sana last year, June 14, 2021. Kasi meron nung tax amnesty law. Kasi ito final and executory eh. Under sa tax amnesty law nung nag-end nung June 14, 2021, they could have paid 50% of the basic.
Of the 23?
Yeah. So
50% of that?
Yeah, 50% of that, and everything would have been
11.5, 11.6.
Everything would have been settled because of that tax amnesty law. But it expired already June 14, 2021. So balik na naman.
Ma'am, sorry, mathematics yan. So you mean kung umabot sila sa deadline for the tax amnesty law, if they paid 11.7 or 11.6 billion, that would have settled it ba? Or that would only settle the principal?
No, it settled everything.
Everything?
Yes, that's why it's an amnesty. It's a tax amnesty law.
Okay. Pero it's moot na, it's already moot in academic, I suppose.
Yeah, because it expired already. That's what I am saying. And it's an amnesty law, so you have to apply, contrary to what a former regional director of BIR said, that because of the amnesty, everything is forgiven. It's not like that. You have to apply for the amnesty so that it can be forgiven. And since they did not apply, so they did not avail of the amnesty.
So ang tindahan sarado na rin?
Sarado na rin. Unless magbigay sila ng another amnesty. So, pero in another amnesty, kailangan blanket. Hindi pwedeng for one person lang. Kailangan blanket amnesty para sa lahat ng tao sa Pilipinas.
Okay. Well, Justice, Commissioner, I'm sorry, we're almost out of time. I think we just have enough time for each of you to leave your message, whatever message you want to leave to the viewers and to the general public. Justice, kayo po muna.
Yeah, the estate tax liability of the Marcos estate, it's important to determine the character of Bongbong Marcos because he is the co-administrator. And under the tax code, the primary obligation to pay the estate tax is imposed by law on the co-administrators. No? And if he has been waffling, at first he said it's still pending in court, but now even the lawyer of Partido Reforma and even Juan Enrile said, well, it's really final and executory already. I mean, if it's final and executory, you have to pay now. I mean, there's no other way but to pay because it's final and executory. And if you are the president, you will be invoking final and executory in many cases. And you want the people to obey the decision of the court because it's final and executory. But if you don't obey a final and executory decision of the court, then you have no respect for the rule of law. And you still want to be the chief executive of the country who will minister the laws, who will execute the laws of the land. That's inconsistent. Thank you.
Okay. Retired Supreme Court Justice Antonio Carpio. Ma'am Henares, kayo po.
Actually, more than the political noise and everything, I think the discussion of the estate tax is educational to people. No? That they now became aware that when somebody died, there are a process that you should pay. Otherwise, you as an heir or executor or administrator are liable for this. And there's parang the taxes keep on increasing if you do not pay on time. So for me, that's a good discussion more than what all these political things are happening. But at the same time, I think it's important for a leader to follow the law. This is the law. We always have a statement that dura lex sed lex. The law might be harsh, but that is the law. So that's my concern lang, that as a leader, you have a final and executory judgment and you're not complying with it. Now, kasi I'm campaigning for a candidate, so if people will say I might be self-serving. So let us assume if he wins as president, I hope the first act he will do in his presidency is to pay the 203 billion peso. It will also be his investment into the success of his administration and the success of our country. If he really has an intention to make our country successful. Because as a business person, I don't think he want to pay it now. He will probably wait to pay it if it is his administration. Kasi it will jumpstart his administration. But having said that,
that's an interesting point.
Yeah, I just want to say that all of us, if we do not follow the law, we will have no country at the end. if our country is chaotic because everyone has their own idea and we do not follow the law that are passed and it's not implemented properly, there will come a point when we might not have a country to speak of. That's even sad. That's the saddest part. So, you know.
Well, just for context, kasi a lot of people tend to lump people together carelessly. Si Commissioner Kim is not associated with Lenny Robredo's group.
I'm with King Lacson.
There you go. Baka sabihin kasi nila, may sabihin ng iba, Anyway, I just had to say that. I'm sorry. But I'd like to say thank you so much, Justice Carpio, Commissioner Henares. Ma'am, sir, maraming salamat for joining us today. I think a lot of our viewers came out of this discussion with a lot of new information, a lot of action points, and hopefully a lot of clarity dun sa issue ng inheritance tax na iniiwasan ng maraming tao. But thank you very much for your time today, and we hope you have a good week ahead, and we hope you have a good May 9 coming up.
Thank you.
Okay, we'd like to say thank you to our guests today. We came out of this discussion, I think, with a lot of new information, a lot of new insights, and hopefully a lot of new action points. So that's it for this episode of the PPI podcast. We will see you again next episode next month. So please join us again here with the PPI.